Good evening. My name is Carlos Porreta, and I am the current chair of the Dance Palace Art Committee. The Art Committee provides opportunities for local artists that live or work in West Marin and encourages new artists to exhibit their work in our lobby gallery on a monthly basis. Due to COVID-19 pandemic, the Dance Palace has been closed for over 6 months, and we have no idea how long this will go on. As we're unable to meet in person, the Dance Palace is being moving events online. This decline in income has moved us to rely on donations and has invited us to find other ways for artists to exhibit their work and have artist receptions. The Art Committee is answering this challenge with virtual monthly exhibits and artist receptions. I'm proud to say this is our first one, and it is truly virtual considering that our artists are currently based in Uruguay and we're getting people from Portland and Argentina and all sorts of places. Before I introduce our artists, there are some ground rules I would like to go over with all of you. And I'm just repeating what Bonnie said. The first one is that the will be recorded and uploaded to YouTube. So anyone that does not want to appear in the video should turn their cameras off. Please turn the lights off so that background noise can be kept to a minimum. We try to keep the presentation to 1 hour. Laurel Ann will be speaking about some of her pieces individually. At the end of each explanation, she will open it to questions. If you have a question, please use the chat option, and Bonnie Gutman, the Executive Director of the Dance Palace, will be handling the chat questions. We may not be able to get to all the questions due to the time constraints, but we'll do the best we can. Thanks in advance for keeping these ground rules in mind. So now let me tell you about the Artist of the Month. Laurel Ann Riley, also known as LA, is an independent artist, dancer, and educator who was raised in Point Reyes Station. LA went through Inverness and West Marin schools and Tomales High School, and later studied at UC Berkeley. While studying in Santiago, Chile in 2015, LA connected with the desire to create art and work with children. In 2019, LA moved to Buenos Aires and started working independently as an artist and educator. LA's work has been shown and sold in streets and markets in Chile, Argentina, and Uruguay. LA is currently living in Uruguay, teaching online language and working with the Dance Palace in their online programming. So please join me in welcoming Laurel Ann Riley, LA.
Hi, everyone. It's so amazing to see you all here. Thank you to every single one of you for being here. This is amazing. I'm here on my 25th birthday, sitting in Uruguay. It's 9 p.m. And seeing you all in Inverness and Berkeley and Argentina, just all over the world. This is just an amazing space. So I just want to take a moment to thank everyone and just feel each other's presence. I know like maybe everyone's been feeling a little zoomed out, like they're spending a lot of time on the computer. But I just want to take a moment to like observe this opportunity that we're in right now, right? Like we're all here from all over these different places, and being able to share this closeness. I personally feel very close to all of you right now. So I just wanted to first start out with expressing that gratitude to each and every one of you for forming a part of my story and my path as an artist. So thank you. Thank you for your presence, and thank you for your support, and thank you for your happy birthday messages. And with that, I wanted to first kind of propose this as an invitation to be curious in this next hour. My art is created from this place of being inspired by working with children and by observing the world around me and the world inside me too. And I think it's that inspiration that moves me to create this curiosity, right? So in this hour, I just totally encourage you to ask me questions. If you want to ask in the chat, I'm just I'm here for your creativity and curiosity in this process. The idea is that this is a contagious thing. I know contagious is kind of a strong word in this moment, but yeah. I want us to like see if we can redefine it, right? We know how connected we are at this point, so we could use it in a loving and present way. So with that, I want to tell you a little bit about these pieces that I'm going to show you today. These have been created over the last 9 months of my living in Uruguay. I thought it was beautiful to share this 9 months, this gestation of art. It's marked this moment in my life of being present in the moment, of basically letting myself be free of missing. You know, I'm far away from Point Reyes right now. It's where I grew up, and just taking a moment to be where I am and realize that that home is something I carry with me every day, with in my body and in my experience. And you know, in creating, I'm bringing that inner world outward, and it's just really powerful. So that's kind of the place I've created this stuff from. You're gonna see a lot of pieces that are like different concepts and symbols taken from lots of different places and merged together. And that's kind of how I see life, as this process of experiencing and interacting with people and bringing them into our experience. You know, if we were each to write a story, what would my story look like? That's kind of the place I make art from. And I wanted to share also just a little bit about my process of creating, the materials I use. I have my watercolors here. These are the watercolors that all of this art has been created with. You know, and this has all been created in this notebook. I've been, you know, on the road, and so, you know, all these pieces are about 8.5 by 11. They've been carefully saved in this notebook. And other than that, the materials I've used for this are a pair of scissors and a glue stick. So I've been kind of in this process, connecting to the kid inside me too. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to share with you all before sharing the first pieces. Yeah, I would say the last part is that some of these pieces have been created almost like a sneeze, like just in a moment they just needed to come out of me, and you know, and I find them on the page. It's kind of gross, sorry. And then other pieces have been kind of calculated over lots of time and parts have appeared in dreams, but I haven't known like how to incorporate them for maybe months later. I see clearly how all the pieces fit together. So I also wanted to share that it's very varied in the way and time and all these different parts of the process. And I'll be sharing a little bit with you about that. So just to be transparent about what this hour is going to look like, is I'm about to show you about, well, we'll see what we get to, but several pieces, and I'm going to talk specifically about them. And then in the last 20 or so minutes, we're going to have a full question and answer session. So, you know, feel free to, you know, open questions up at any point in the process. You don't have to wait till the end, but also know that there will be time for us to discuss and for all of your questions. So with that, I'm going to open up the first piece that I want to share with you. This takes a little time. I also wanted to say this is the first moment that the art committee through the Dance Palace is putting on an artist show, and I just I'm so thankful to be the first artist. And I want to invite everyone to, like, imagine we're in the same space right now. Imagine we're all in the Dance Palace, hanging out, checking out art. That's the invitation here, is to connect in that way, yeah? Okay. Can I get a thumbs up from someone to see if you are seeing what I'm seeing? Awesome, get some thumbs up, thank you. Awesome, so this first piece is called Hello. It's a piece that was created, as you can see in the bottom right corner, it was created in late March. So this was the first piece that I created from quarantine. My partner Demi and I were in Montevideo. We were trying to figure out, you know, if I should go back to California and he should go back to Argentina, or, you know, what to do. There's kind of this chaos. It's an internal chaos, and also this desire to like bring out, just like validate that I'm existing right now. I think that's for me like a really powerful, like self-portraits are a really powerful tool of like, as a 20-something-year-old, kind of constantly giving myself the freedom to be myself and be a new person every day if I want to. Like just play around, you know, not take myself too seriously and take myself seriously and not taking myself seriously, right? Be committed to the game and the play, right? And with this play, I wanted to share kind of a little bit about the process in creating this piece. I don't know if you can see these clouds behind this person, but I don't know if anyone recognizes these designs, but these are paper towels, kitchen towels, paper towels, that I always have kind of next to me to dry my brushes when I'm painting. You know, I was painting and drying them, and once I was done painting, I, you know, grabbed the paper towels to throw them away, and I had this moment of looking at my hands and saying, whoa, this is amazing. This is like this whole, look at this thing that I was about to throw away. How can I use this, you know? So I took them and started playing around. I dried them out on the kitchen counter and started playing around and making these like landscapes out of these almost trash clouds. So I kind of, yeah, it was like a process of telling a story about who this person is. This person that, to me, the piece really represents my freedom of, you know, being in a personality, and at the same time, this personality being just expansive and loving and constantly able to flow with whatever resonates for me right now. And yeah, I created this piece also to be very like gender neutral. You see all these different like colors and textures, and kind of the idea also, it talks a lot about gender, about like just that there really isn't, I think we're in a moment of just really questioning this gender binary and like realizing that, like, look at all these colors, look at all these textures. There's no way to break the world down into two pieces. It's impossible. So this piece also talks about that, about like just freedom in all senses. So with that, that's what I'd like to say about this piece. I don't know if anyone has any questions before I move on. This piece is called Hello, as I mentioned. Are there any questions in the chat there, Bonnie?
No, I'm not seeing any so far.
Okay.
But I actually have a question I just want to ask you. Just overall, what moves you to do your work?
What moves me to do my work? That's a great question. Thank you. I would say it's like in the first place, art is, I was really thinking about this morning when I woke up. I was like, art is not a choice for me. It just like is what I need to do. It's like eating, it's like going outside, it's like drinking water. It's a necessary thing for me. And I think like with that, eating last year maybe looks different from eating this year for each person, right? We have different relationships with this process of doing the thing. So I think like, if I look at myself last year, what moved me to create art was just this deep catharsis that I was looking for. You know, just, I can't see clearly what's going on inside me, but I need to let it out. And I think what's special about this collection is it really like marked a moment for me where I started saying, okay, what if I try to communicate with other people through my art? What if I try to use this art to be understood or to propose ideas? So I think for now, right now, me, Laurel Ann, in this moment, I'm moved to create because it's a way of telling a story, of validating that I'm alive and telling a story, and existing. And yeah, I think art is living, and we all create art in our own different ways. So that's a great question. Thank you for that, Bonnie. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to the next piece. And again, I'm gonna ask for a thumbs up from someone once you can see this. Awesome, thank you, Richard. Okay, so this piece is called Seed. This is an example of a piece that I created over a long period of time. It looks very simple, and you'd say like, I don't know, maybe maybe you'd say this doesn't look like you created it over a long period of time, but each part of it, you know, has its own story. This was created a little later on in quarantine, and it's really inspired by this idea of light. I wanted to play with light and kind of this physical feeling of light touching your body. This was created from we're in a very small apartment building with really the only like access to light was this one window that would shine through. And just like that feeling, just like, again, I keep coming back to this validation of existence, right? But just like this feeling in your body where the sun is touching your skin, even through a window. And I really like about this piece that, you know, you can't see the rest of the space. Like it could be a light shining inward, or a light shining out. It could be moonlight, it could be sunlight. It's really like, I would invite you to kind of like ask yourself how it resonates for you, what, you know, like what light feels good for you, you know. You'll also notice that these lines, none of them are straight. They're all kind of funky. I was like about to start making these with a ruler, you know, really like making them exact, but I started kind of, I don't remember exactly where I heard this, but someone talking about how there are no straight lines in nature. There's no straight path. You know, the closest thing maybe that we'll find in nature to a straight line is the horizon. And if you go in an airplane, you'll see that it's not a straight line. So just really like kind of playing around with this idea of straight lines and not straight lines, and you know, these cyclical processes of nature, of expansion and contraction. And the last thing I want to say about this piece is like, obviously, you know, this figure in the center like calls your attention. And this figure is trying to express this like this most contracted state that we can be in, right? It's almost a fetal position. And that I've been kind of reflecting a lot on plants and their processes, and that this piece is called Seed because this person is like in a seed position. And seeds are these moments in a plant's life where they are at their full potentiality. They have their whole life ahead of them to expand out and express and all this stuff. And I think like we look at this position as like a failure or an ending or something like broken. But I think I just, with this piece, I'm proposing maybe that is like this most potent place that we're creating from, and we can always expand outward, but it's like such a valid place to be hugging ourselves and to be letting ourselves be in this vulnerable position, like, you know, inviting this vulnerability. I think there's just like so much healing that can come from that. Here, Leslie's saying protective, and yes, absolutely. You know, we need to feel safe in our bodies to be able to do everything else, right? So anyway, that's what I want to say about this piece. I don't know if anyone has any questions about this one. If you have questions, you can write them in the chat. And if not, there's always going to be time at the end if you don't have any questions coming up now. But if there's no questions, I will move on to the next one. Thank you, Leslie. And Lori saying that you love this piece. Thank you. It's great to see you here. And Jennifer's asking, did you do this in one sitting? That's a great question. Thank you. No. The first part that came was just actually, the first thing I drew were the light streaks. It was just for like 2 months, it was just a page of these 3 parallel-ish lines. And then the windows came in later. And the very last piece, you know, I had these windows that I loved and this background that I loved, but there was like, I needed a human there. There was just like, you know, and so finally that last piece was this person in the center. And I had thought this piece was unfinished. This is kind of an interesting thing too. I had really like thought this one was unfinished, and I showed this to Demi, and he's like, "This is ready. This is amazing." This, you know, I don't know if there are lots of other artists here that I'm sure would resonate with the idea that, you know, this idea is like, is it finished? I don't know. And like, even when it's finished, it's like, man, I still want to keep like adding stuff to it. So just, you know, letting myself be with the fact that this is finished and here to share with you all. Thank you for that question, Jennifer. All right, I'm gonna move on. Can I get a thumbs up from someone? Let me know if you can see the next one. Awesome, thank you. Okay, so this piece is called Mucha Luz. Here I wanted to give a shout out to all the people in Argentina and Uruguay and Spanish speakers that are here today. To people who don't speak Spanish, this hay mucha luz sin luz says there's lots of light without light. This piece is a lot about intuition, and again, this kind of bodily feeling of feet, of having feet and having them touch the earth. Or, you know, all of these parts of our bodies that are sensory, right? In reality, like, you know, our fingertips too, but just that these are like, if we were plants, these would be like the part that's connecting to our roots, that's like reaching downward into the earth. And, you know, if we're animals, they're part that kind of impulses us forward. I kind of want to leave this piece open to you to feel out kind of like what comes up for you personally, to each of you that's here. But I would say that I want to talk a little bit about the phrase "hay mucha luz sin luz." Here you're gonna see that, like, starting here, kind of in what I'm sharing, you're gonna see that I started really like including words a lot more in my art, and I started playing around with fonts. That's something I really liked to do as a kid. Playing around with fonts, I would change my, you know, I would play around with my signature and tried out different things. And I found this font, just like, I fell in love with it as kind of like a dreamy font. Like, it really feels kind of like words that would come in dreams. Hay mucha luz sin luz is like, I play around with it in my head all day. I have like actually a song that I sing that is these words kind of like tumbling around over and over again. Again, I want to invite you to kind of feel out what you feel, but for me, it came up first like when, you know, we were watching a sunset and the sun went down, and all of a sudden you realize it's dark out. And there's kind of this, like, for me at least, a first impulse to like turn on a flashlight to figure out, you know, where I'm going and stuff. but at the same time, like this knowledge that if I leave the light off, I can actually see a lot. My eyes can really see a lot around me. And even if my eyes can't see anything, my feet can feel stuff, my skin can feel, I smell things, I can hear. It's just, we have so much ability in our bodies, pulsing through us. So that's kind of what I want to say about this piece. There's a lot of elements, and I would just totally invite you to ask about specific elements if you want. But at the same time, I'm trying to kind of balance out sharing about it and letting you feel what resonates for you. And here we have Caro, who's saying, es increíble esa imagen, Lau, me acuerdo cuando la estabas haciendo. That means this is an amazing picture. I remember when you were doing it. So this is Caro, who is, yes, present in this process when we were traveling in Uruguay. Yeah, this piece is very inspired by the kind of the essence of travel, kind of the essence of impulse and travel, and all that process brings up. So yeah, I would say also, just last thing I would want to say about feet is that they are the part of our body that connects us, like, between the cosmic and the earth, right? Like, you know, our cosmic bodies are existing above the earth, but these feet, I think, like, can really root down. And as you've seen, the name of this collection is Home Inside. And that's been a kind of a theme that's been appearing for me a lot, is like, wow, wherever I go, you know, there's lyrics that say home is whenever I'm with you, but it's actually like, wait, home is whenever I'm with me, like I'm always home. And that's a really beautiful feeling. So thank you. I'm gonna move on to the next one if no one has any questions. It looks like Rich maybe has a question. He's gonna write in the chat, looks like. In this piece, what was the evolution of the images? I like that question. Thank you, Richard. So that's a great question. First, I want to say that in every single piece I'm sharing with you today, there are at least 2 levels of things put on top of each other. In this one, the only extra level is the words. They were kind of put on later on. The first thing that was created in this was one of the feet. I can't remember which one. I think it was the leg, the one that's kind of coming up from the sky. So the feet were definitely first. I had these 3 feet, and I was like, what do I do with 3 feet? You know, it's too many feet for one picture. What are we gonna do with this? And then I started playing around with this onion, this orange. They came next. They came next as kind of a playing around with this sensory idea, both to plants that that give up a lot of smell. Their whole essence, you can feel it from very far away. One is, very rooted, one is much more cosmic. And also you're gonna see this kind of repeating theme of citrus fruits floating in the sky in my art. And that's inspired by my work with children. There's a kid I do classes with that is obsessed with space and is obsessed with fruit. And we always have fun, like playing around with this idea that like fruits are planets, and wouldn't it be so funny if there was like a banana that was the moon, and wouldn't it be hilarious if there was Venus was a lemon, so that's also kind of, I wanted to share that little piece, that's kind of a sun orange, sun mandarin orange. But yeah, anyway, so then those kind of came, and then the last part that came was the snake came along, and then the last part was the words, which really tied it all together. That's when this piece was truly finished. So thank you for that question, Rich. Okay, so this piece I mean, it's called The Time of Returning, very obvious. Um, again, this is a piece that was created in many parts. I want to, like, from the beginning say that the drawing of me there is not done by myself. It's done by Demi, my partner, who's somewhere in there in the call. We were kind of playing around with drawing objects in quarantine. This was like created in the first, that part was created in the first few weeks of quarantine, just like observing stuff in our space. And we drew like every single thing that was in our space. Started drawing each other, started drawing, you know, like the phone or whatever. So that piece was, you know, he drew this and I added color to it. And let's see, the passion flowers that are here were created much before, as were the words. They were probably from like February-ish or even January. These were inspired by, we were staying in a house with a friend, and her daughter came home one day. You know, I had been sitting outside and painting in the mornings when we were waking up, and she brought me this beautiful passion flower that she had found, and I was like, wow, it's so pretty, you know. And she said, yeah, I got this for you so that you could paint it, so you could draw it and practice, you know. So I was like, it just totally inspired me, and I started playing around with this, and it kind of came to represent this, like, this friendship and this just really sweet process of sharing and creating in community and with others. And that kind of brings me to the words, which are the time of returning, which came up in a phone conversation with my friend Ruby, who I don't know if they're here or not, but anyway, it was this idea that, like, this is a moment in time where, as a world, we're kind of returning to the roots of our, like, human essence. You know, like with this whole COVID moment, like the jobs that were like, just this idea of, man, I always forget that, just the idea of that, like, okay, first thing we need to worry about is food, okay, and shelter, okay, and like, how do we, you know, find food and shelter for everyone? And then the rest of the stuff, right? Then the rest of the, like, directions we've gone, you know, as a society, and, you know, all these, like, you know, these bifurcations. But like, just like coming back to the roots, coming back to the human essence of who we are. As I mentioned at the beginning, like, for me, that's creating. That's part of my necessary things that I need to do. But I think, like, it really has been a returning to ourselves. And something that I've been reflecting on a lot is just that, like, in the conversations I'm having, there's just been like a more honest level of telling each other how we feel and asking how we feel from a true, sincere place. And I think that's also like a returning to our intuitive way of connecting to each other, our human networks, our social networks, just like all these, just like, most rooted, most necessary parts of ourselves. And with that, you're gonna see this window. This is the last part I want to say about this, is that I don't know if you can tell from this picture, but it's actually a plastic bag. The window's made out of a little cutout plastic bag. That's kind of like a little bit of a reference to our our kind of the level we've come to with plastic and everything, and just like, you know, we've gone so far, and we're kind of coming back to this place of like grounding again. You know, so that's kind of where this piece is created from. I don't know if anyone has any questions about this. Kind of one other thing I guess I want to say before I move on, if no one has any questions, is that, like, you're going to kind of see in a lot of work that I really like to play with, like, architectural stuff, and at the same time I like to have them kind of floating in space. I'm a person that, like, I've just always remembered my dreams, and they've always been a big part of my life. Like, in kindergarten, I used to really like to, you know, write down my dreams, and even if they're scary dreams, I would like draw pictures of them, and, It's always been kind of like incorporated in my process, and you're gonna see a lot of like dream references in my work, because I do think it's like, it's this whole world we go to that is part of our lived experience, and sometimes we forget, sometimes we remember, but I think it's important to bring dreams into this conscious world here. And Lori says, your partner is a gifted artist too. That's a great drawing of you. Thank you. Yes, and yes, he is. Absolutely. He says, thank you. Awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to the next one. How are we doing on time? Yeah, we've got time for the next one. And then we'll move into the question and answer session, if that's cool with people. So start connecting with your curiosity. There's no silly questions. It's all great. So anyway. And here's Bonnie's writing in the chat. That's great. Yes, please support the Dance Palace. Yeah, anyway, I could go off and start talking about how awesome it is that the Dance Palace is moving stuff online and creating spaces like this. But you probably already know that if you're here. So, okay, can I get a thumbs up to see if everyone's seeing this one? Thank you,
Yes.
Carlos. Awesome. So this piece is called Gracias. I think universally people in English know what this means, especially California. Yeah, anyway, I wanted to start kind of with this Gracias, which was actually the last piece that I added to it. Gracias, I would just invite folks to the next time you go to the ocean or to the bay, is to try and listen for the word gracias in the waves. I started realizing that, whoa, the waves are always saying gracias, gracias, gracias. In this kind of moving and coming back. I want to share a little bit too about the process of this. I don't know if you can see from here, but the part at the bottom with the kind of the sea floor is just this whole wild wonderland of creativity and flow and stuff. And this was actually inspired by a project I did on Garo's van. Garo, who wrote in the chat a little bit ago, I was planning out a mural and wanted to make these really like playful hills. And didn't end up using this part, but I really wanted to include it in something. And so I started playing around with the idea that this is like deep under the water. I'm a scuba diver, and once I started scuba diving, I really started noticing, okay, like anything taller than me could be the surface and I could be deep under the water. Like just really playing around with these ideas of like space and what's up and what's down, and like being how here in the Southern Hemisphere, on a different time zone and with opposite seasons, and just like really like, whoa, man, like the world, there is no up and there is no down. And like, I just really started playing around with things being under the water. And here I just wanted to like take a moment to talk about the lighthouse, which was totally inspired by growing up in Point Reyes and just the amazing community of artists who live there. The amazing amount of creativity in West Marin, and just like the level of commitment to the kids who live there, and just like I remember doing this lighthouse contest where they showed us how to do lighthouses, and we drew them, and it was just like, I don't know exactly, I can't explain why, but it was just like, it was just such a important moment in my process of creation, as a little kid. And I think like in this process of traveling and being in Uruguay, I've had a lot of moments of feeling like I'm home and feeling like a lot of similarity to West Marin in a lot of ways. So this piece was like created just in the middle of just so much traveling and being on the road, and just like living out of a backpack, and feeling like, wow, okay, yeah, this rooting in this creativity, this vision. I think like lighthouses can represent a lot of compassion. Like looking out for the people around us. They're kind of this, again, like union of under and out, light coming out. Yeah, I also don't want to say too much about it because I want you to also, feel what you feel and have your own process with this. And I'm seeing there's a lot of stuff in the chat. There's a question from Jennifer. On your travels and when you have done a lot of backpacking, are you always journaling and drawing? Thank you for that question, because that's something I would have forgotten to talk about specifically if you hadn't have asked, so thank you. I wanted to say that like me creating art has been totally like, it's just totally been a necessary part of me coming back to myself always. I always journal and I always draw. I don't want to show you because there's too many journals, but in this process, I've been just accumulating journals. I've started making them by hand because I just go through them so fast. And in that storytelling with words, I always, create little images, little drawings here and there. So yes, I'm always journaling and drawing. Sometimes I move away from like big paintings and I just do little doodles, but I'm at a point where I like just trust in that where, however I express my creativity, it's going to come out somehow. Maybe I'm not journaling or drawing, but I'm cooking a lot and that's where my creativity is going. So I've also like learned to be a little more compassionate with that process and not, always be forcing myself to paint if I don't feel like it. But yes, I also would say last thing about this is that with my journaling, I have a really good time, like if I'm going through a hard process, like drawing myself in that process, and it like just makes me have a different perspective of what I'm going through. I'm like, oh, that little cartoon person is experiencing this thing, and they're figuring out how to express that, and it's just like a way of kind of feeling like I'm always accompanied. So thank you for that question, Jennifer. And Marce says, amo este hermoso. Este es hermoso me identifica, which means I love this. It's beautiful. I feel very identified with this. I'm trying to see, these are all very nice things. I want to translate parts that are in Spanish in case people don't understand. Nuria says, wow, no lo había visto ese, me encanta, es como 3D. She said she loves it and it's like 3D. And she hadn't seen this one. And Krista loves the upside down clouds. Leslie, I love this one too. It speaks to me when we're in where we are now. Upside down elements, layers of meaning, seawater rising, light to continue to shine. Absolutely. Thank you, Leslie. And yes, and I also wanted to kind of like call attention to this message in the bottle, right? Like that, all this is happening and then there's this message that's still there and it's floating around, and just trusting that that message is gonna show up where it needs to show up, right? How are we doing on time, Bonnie? Let's see,
You're doing fine. And you have another question in here from Randy. Are you saying that?
Awesome. Okay. Yes. Do you want me to read it or should I read it? I'll read it. Do you want me to read it or should I read it? Yeah. Okay. So clearly I want to read it. You seem to have a very alchemical approach to art. Those clouds that almost were paper towels thrown into the garbage come to mind, mining every aspect of reality to produce something magical. I'm curious, what are the most important aspects of your relationship to art, making that elevate it from just being a hobby into being a sacred practice, if it is? Can you speak a little to this? Thank you, Randy, for that that observation and question. Yeah, I would like I would ask kind of what the difference is between a hobby and a sacred practice. Like, I really do think that all of our practices are sacred. If we're doing them from like an aligned place, if I'm creating art and like feeling like I don't want to, or if I'm like in conflict with it, maybe it's not sacred. But even that process of conflict is sacred too. Like I really think there's like a sacredness to it all. And I think especially hobbies like are sacred practices, because they're a lot of times like a place a person feels comfortable going to connect with themselves in their essence. And whatever that hobby, like whatever they find of pleasure in that hobby, means that it's something in themselves that is resonating. So I guess I would say, like, turning back to myself, I would say it's a hobby and a sacred practice. I think about, like it's a process that brings me inward and outward at the same time. A lot of these pieces have been created just like with me. Carlos mentioned it a little bit at the beginning, but a lot of these pieces, like I was traveling around Uruguay and, at a lot of markets, selling my art. And when that happens, like 80% of the time, I'm just sitting there and people are walking by. And I started, I have a practice of just like coming back to myself and creating and just like, taking in what's around me and processing it through myself and pushing it back out into the world. So I guess, I think that's what we do with everything. I think, like we do that with cooking, we do that with, well, I don't have children, but I feel like these art pieces are kind of my children. We do that with interacting with each other. We do that with our work. I think like really, those are all sacred practices. It's just kind of like how we look at them. But thank you for that question. And I think there really is an alchemy in my process. Barbara J says, LA, you really speak with color, such a vivid palette. Thank you. Yes. Yes. Color. Yeah, I love color so much. Yeah, I could go into color and talk about color for many hours, but that's a lot. But like a little thing I would share about color is just that when I close my eyes, it's all color. And I think like color is just totally a necessary part to expressing what I'm trying to express. I've tried black and white. I have fun. I have a good time. It actually, helps me kind of like get structured, but man, I like my desire is to create with color. So I go with that. And so, yeah, I love letting colors out. And I think that kind of comes together with like how I love working with children and playing with children too. Like there's this colorfulness that is just like aliveness and color is such an important part of my process. And here Barbara J is asking, are these all watercolors, pencils, pastels? Thank you. That is something I wanted to talk about at the beginning, so I would say mostly it's ink and watercolor in general. And I use watercolor. Sometimes you'll see it and it almost looks like acrylic because it's so thick, or gouache maybe. But it's all watercolor, except for I really like oil pastels too. I almost always do some sort of layer on top of oil pastel to give it kind of this 3D look. I think, these clouds have oil pastel on top, as do the bubbles. So yeah, I'm gonna actually take the opportunity to open up I'm gonna show you kind of the rest of the pieces so that you can see that. But yeah, in general, these are on paper, different layers, but with watercolor and ink. I almost never use colored pencils. I use them more kind of like playing, but not as much. Yeah, it's not as common. Just one second. I'm trying to talk and move to the next screen here, so bear with me.
While she's doing that, I'm just going to say, if you guys have any other questions, go ahead and put them in the chat and we'll get to them in a minute.
Awesome, thank you. let us see. So I'm going to share here. Okay, so there we go. I'm going to start from the beginning. I have 12 pieces to share with you all. And I kind of like the idea here is that, you know, it's a lot of information all at the same time, but I kind of want to just like invite, you know, curiosity and observation and anything you're wondering about any of these pieces. I'm here and would love to answer any questions. Bonnie, just so you know, now I can't see the chat. So if you want to let me know any questions that you see, I would love to answer them.
Okay, I am not seeing any, but I have another one. What is your favorite part of the creation process?
What is the favorite part of the creation process? I think my favorite part is when this desire to create like touches the material world. Like it's like, you know, when this thing that's an idea like comes into the physical world. It's like, I just think that's really special. And yeah, I don't know what else to say about that, but yeah. You know, before that looked like catharsis for me, and now it's kind of more of like, oh, I have this feeling and I want to express it, you know, in the physical world. Like, you know, it's almost become more of kind of like, I've become a little more organized over time. And yeah, anyway. I don't know if there's any more questions, but I wanted to mention the fonts here. You can see this is a different font in general than the other ones. This is kind of more of a font I use when I'm like kind of letting out more catharsis. It's kind of a font I use with like more emotionally heavy processes. So it's kind of like, I didn't even notice until afterwards, like this is an observation I've been making, but like, you know, there are these two different fonts that I always, you know, play around with, and it's either one or the other. Anyway, so yeah.
We have a comment here from Lori Montserrat. It says, Laurel Ann, every time I see my favorite, I see another I love. You have such a gift. Thank you.
Aw, that's really sweet. Thank you, Lori. Very sweet words and for being here. I'm gonna move to the next ones. I know this is a very short amount of time to see a lot of work, but I wanted to kind of take a moment to let you all know that these pieces are gonna be up on the Dance Palace website through October. And then there's gonna be another amazing artist, Carol Whitman, who's gonna be showing in November. So, you know, I just want to invite you, like, I know it's on the computer, but like to give yourself that experience of going to the gallery, right? To go to this virtual gallery space. Yeah, and if there's questions that you have that come up for you after, later on, you can always email me. I love to hear from you and would love to answer any of your questions.
And LA, there's a question here from Sydney Bortel. It says, could you tell us what the fonts are?
What the fonts are, like what they're, where what their names are, or like what, can you clarify a little bit the question?
Sydney, do you want to add to that?
Just so I can answer, you know, in a way that's clear.
While we're waiting, we've got one from Rich Clark here.
Here we go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Sydney.
Just the name of these two fonts, they're very intriguing and I've never seen them before.
Oh, the name. Yeah, I don't know if there's a name. They, you know, I want to be clear that I've maybe seen them somewhere else. You know, I think that's something that happens in the creation process all the time, where, you know, you pick up on things and don't even notice that they were integrated into your process, or into my process. But for me, they've been an exploration. They've been something that's kind of been born in the last year for me. I've always really liked fonts. I've really always liked to play around a lot with writing. But yeah, so that's a great question. Thanks. Yeah, there's not a name for them, but I would, in my world, call this the dreamy font, and the other one would be kind of like the angry font, which was also the font where I would take, you know, fast notes in college and stuff. So yeah, I have a fast font and a slow font too. I've started noticing that.
Okay, and I've got a couple more questions here from Rich Clark. You spoke of the sacred, and I wonder about the value of light you give to ilus, seeds, and gracias, and if there is a sacredness of light to you.
Thank you, Richard. You're you're here with the questions. I love it. And yes, absolutely. I absolutely see light as sacred. I could go on about that forever, probably, but one of my favorite lyrics of all time is Leonard Cohen's. We've already talked about this, but there's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Yeah, you know, like from the physical process of feeling light, from what, you know, light gives us color. Light, you know, is a visual process, and all these different animals see light in different ways, and it you know, has formed a part of evolution, you know, certain bugs being able to see certain ways of seeing this flower that they know that it's time to pollinate, you know, just like infinite ways that light is just this I see light as magical, light as magical and sacred, and that feeling, you know. Thank you, Richard. And I would throw that question back to you all, like, you know, what is sacred to you, and how does that kind of like come up in your everyday life? Yeah, you know, I'm just over here throwing the questions back at people, but you know, it's.
And then I have another question here for you from Leslie Adler Ivanbrook. What inspired your creation of scrambled eggs?
Yes, awesome. I'm gonna go back to scrambled eggs here. Scrambled eggs is awesome. Scrambled eggs was a great piece, and I wanted to share that when I was showing this piece to my mom, she said, yeah, this looks like, you know, the Lane in Marshall. And I was like, you know, this was a piece that was created by sitting on the beach in Uruguay. You know, like it just this kind of, again, coming back to this, like these parallels in life. And yeah, you know, I created this piece. You know, first, obviously the picture came, which was, you know, a very just observative process of being on the beach and seeing this kind of landscape. This was when I was in Balizas, Uruguay. And yeah, I painted this one morning before breakfast, and went back to the van where we were staying with Gato. And, you know, breakfast, and just kind of like was really enjoying this kind of like experience of like all these different elements of feeling coming together, you know, like breakfast morning and the sun's coming out, and there's like these bugs crawling around, and like just kind of like I wanted to play with the idea of pleasure and displeasure, and kind of like in the sensory experience, and just kind of this like, yeah, just like the story like quality of life sometimes, you know, like that you can just be in you can just be alive and living life, but it just feels so surreal. And I just kind of, yeah, this one was just a fun, goofy one of my imagination playing around. So anyway, thank you.
And then I have a message here from Liam saying that Carolyn Serrao had a question. You want to ask her about?
Hi, Liam. Hi, Carolyn.
No, I
don't
don't
know
think
what-
I did.
I did.
Papa had a question a little bit ago about the lighthouse piece. The mounds on the sea floor
Mm,
are very striking. Do you see them as metaphorical in any way?
hmm. Hi, Papa and Carolyn. Thank you for the question. I can't see you right now because I can see the pictures, but it's great to hear your voice. Are they metaphorical? Yeah, I would say that these hills were kind of part of an exploration of hills and like playing with kind of the dimension of mountains and kind of these like, you know, mounds of earth that are just so like graceful and expressive. And I kind of wanted to, yeah, I think they represent like the abundance of the earth, the abundance and the playfulness and the creativity that it's kind of like born out of the earth, and this kind of subconscious in ourselves. Like, you know, if we like look into our deep places, into our roots, I think there's a lot of just like playful, dreamy energy that's there. So yeah, I would say these hills, I don't know if that's a metaphor there, but definitely, yeah, they represent that, the kind of the subconscious and just the like, yeah, the wildness of that subconscious.
Okay, so we've got one last question. We're at the end of our evening here. This one is, yeah, this one's for Krista, from Krista, and it says, regarding your journaling, you said sometimes you just do small doodles. In that case, do you use your smaller size journals, or do you carry with you just the 8.5 by 11?
Thank you for that, Krista. And I love talking about this because I love journals. I love journals. I look at myself. I look at a journal as like my heart, you know, and like I'd say that's the only thing I really like cling to. I have like a collection of journals, and yes, before I was only creating in these small journals. I actually have one here, this size. These are the ones I always have with me. You know, I'm taking notes in, I'm writing stuff down, and I do little doodles. But this year I told myself, you know what, like, your art deserves to be bigger. Your art deserves to expand more, and you deserve to, I'm talking to myself here. You deserve to expand more. You deserve to be big. And that kind of came along with this mural painting process too. But yeah, so I always have, you know, the kind of the two with me. And I usually have about 4 journals going for different purposes. So yes, there's kind of the one that has the silly little doodles, and there's the one that's like, okay, yeah, like this is gonna be a piece, you know? And maybe sometimes they don't turn out masterpieces, but still, you know, I have like one that's more me sitting down to create from a more intentional place. So thank you for that question. I love talking about journals.
Okay, so I think we're going to wrap up. We don't have any more questions here in the chats. And Ellie, I just really want to thank you for being our first inaugural online artist to get the art going on online. And I am going to go ahead and put Carlos back on here and let him wrap up.
Before you start, oh, go for it.
Oh, no, please.
I just,
okay,
you know, I know you're gonna be the one closing this out, so I just wanted to like one more time express this deep gratitude to you all for being here, for being curious, for seeing me, for seeing my art. I want to thank the Dance Palace and the Art Committee for doing this, for like rolling with these times and, you know, bringing art to people. And I just, yeah, again, like look at all these people that have come from all over the place to this community center. Like I really think the Dance Palace and the Art Committee are like embodying this idea of like a community center. You know, here we are. And just, I wanted to, like, one last time, Krista's asking how we order artwork. You go to the Dance Palace website, you know, you go to my gallery. Bonnie's gonna write it one more time in the chat to be able to access it. Can you, yeah, I don't know if it's,
Yeah,
I probably put it in a lot of time. But yeah, so you can, there's actually an online site that you can order through. And if there's you have any confusion about that, you can also email me directly. Maybe if you can put my email in the chat too, I would love to help you out with ordering that. They're all prints, by the way. It's a print sale. I have no way of safely sending you my originals from Uruguay. So for now, these are prints. And a percentage of the proceeds will go to the Dance Palace too. So I would encourage everyone to donate to the Dance Palace separately. That, one more gratitude. Thank you, everyone. And we can pass it to Carlos.
Muchísimas gracias, LA. That I can say that has not been said already. I just, oh my goodness, skeleton. Very bad. Anyway, it was just wonderful to listening to you, LA, and you're so inspiring, and it was such an informative presentation of yourself and as an artist and your work. And it was great. It was just wonderful. I'm just really, really happy that there were so many of us to be able to share this. This has been a great, in my view, it's been a great success. This is the first time we do this. We're getting our feet wet. It feels really, really good. And I'm so glad that it was LA, that actually was here in front doing the first one. And I'm really looking forward to Carol Whitman, which is with us here in this particular one. And for the next one, we just stay tuned because we don't really know exactly, I don't know exactly what dates, but that will be, posted. And like I said earlier, the Dance Palace Community Center is a local nonprofit that close to the public, so donations are definitely welcome. And there's times of closure due to the pandemic. So anything that you can help us with will be appreciated. And it's just thank you for your participation. Thanks for all joining us. So Carol, you're next. We'll see how it goes next month. I'm just thrilled that you are actually accepting to join us and be the artist of the month for next month.
It's going to be fun. This is a great thing to see. LA gives me a template to use.
Awesome. I'm excited. It's going to be great.
So thank you very much. And we didn't go over too much. I mean, it was almost 10 minutes, but it was worth every minute of it. It was just delightful. You're a great artist, LA, and it's just so inspiring to see you at your birthday on 24 doing something like this for all of us. It's just a gift. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
And with that, I'll just say good night and thanks again for your participation, everybody.
Yeah, and I just really want to quickly thank everyone again for coming and joining us for our very first online art show. So thanks for coming from all over the world, and LA, thanks for being our guinea pig. You did a great job and your art is beautiful, and happy birthday. And thanks everyone. We're gonna head out now.